Welcome to the Female Finance Collective, where we encourage women to have open and honest conversations about all things money. In today's episode, we're going to do this a little differently, and we're actually going to have a conversation with Sybil about her finances and a few things that she's navigating right now. Excited to have you here. And Sybil, why don't you start with giving us an update on your finances and how you're finding a few different challenges that you're kind of coming across there.
Okay, awesome. I'm excited about this. I'm nervous about this, but this is going to be good. I'm excited about this real talk episode. So basically, I was a teacher and instructional coach for 23 years. So I had a salary that was stable, always through all of those years that kind of grew as I learned more and taught more years. And then I decided to take the big leap and go into authorhood and entrepreneurship. And so that was 2 years, almost 2.5 years ago now that I took that leap. When I was writing my book and just going through a lot of personal development things. So I decided to go for it, which it's literally a leap, right? And go for it and believe in things working out and working really hard and the whole bit, right? And so I went for it. Luckily, not luckily, but intentionally, I should say, we had built ourselves up to a place that I could do that. Right. So we got ourselves, our family into a financial situation that we felt like I could do that. And I'm going to put my quotes up here if you're listening. Always go back to a teaching job a year later. Right. So that was my like plan B. We're going to try this and then I'm going to go back to teaching. So anyway, I started doing international education consulting, literacy consulting, and as an independent contractor job, and that brought in a good wage. I published my book. I started memberships like the Female Finance Collective and Teachers Need Teachers. I'm doing all of the entrepreneurial things. I've written a journal now that's coming out soon, and all is going well. And after that first year is like, yes, we're going to keep doing this. It's viable. We also invested in more real estate during that time, and so I'm building up these incomes to allow me to keep being an entrepreneur. And so first school year, sorry, I talk in school years. Second school year, my brain is just in it. All is good. I'm doing all of these things. This is the third school year, starting in last August, and the international consulting work has been put on a pause. And so that was one of my main income streams. And so what is happening now is that I am finding myself really like cash poor. So the idea of how much comes in each month and how much goes out each month is a struggle, and I'm really having to manage and pay attention to that right now. While we're still secure, and I'm not in a situation where I have to I would go back to the classroom. Month to month, I'm really trying to make ends meet. And so it's a new level of like what cash flow and cash poor means right now at this point in time. Does that make sense?
Yeah. When you left your, like when you made this big leap, were you living off of your husband's income or was it still a blend of what you were able to do with consulting and business?
It was definitely still a blend. So we did the leap thinking, well, I'll rely on my husband's income and our rental property income that streams that we had set up. Um, but well, at the time was one rental property. But the consulting was bringing in enough money that I wasn't making as much money as I was in the classroom, but it wasn't significantly lower. So this is the first time that it's like now we're living on my husband's income completely kind of thing.
Yeah. And I see this as a reality for a lot of people that take the entrepreneurship leap. And it's hard because you look at social media and the timeline, a lot of the content that's out there, they accomplish it in 2 months or 4 months. Like they're very quick timelines. But in reality, a lot of businesses get to the 2, 3, or 4 year mark, and they're still not at the point where the business is super viable and you're paying yourself the same as what you were receiving when you were working full time. So I think it's an important kind of reality check to understand that it happens to a lot of people. It is not easy.
It's so true. You know what, Marilee and Jen, like it's crazy the assumptions. I'm realizing how many assumptions we make about what we think others make, whether they're entrepreneurs or in a classroom in a school. I mean, my husband's salary is very good for a teacher salary, but most of us are making assumptions that teacher salaries aren't good. And that's because they aren't in a lot of places, right? Um, and so it's like when I became a bestseller author, people assumed I was making a lot of money on my book. And that's not true at all. Right. And it's so interesting how that plays into all of this as well, like mindset wise and stuff. Like, there's not a lot of cash coming in from that book. Like, do I regret writing that book? Not at all. It's transformed my entire life. And I'm building up. But like you said, it takes time, but we see the people who did it overnight. They had the overnight success, but they're like the 1% or even less than that, probably. Right. And so that makes it really hard too when I'm playing this like cash flow on a daily, monthly basis now, game of like, feeling like, can I still do this? Should I do this? Like, does it make sense to rely on only his salary? So, how long can I go on only his salary before I need to like find the next thing or,
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Do you have, so agreed. Like a lot of these overnight successes, again, we're all putting air quotes over these overnights if you're listening. Those there's like so many years of work and effort put in behind the scenes, right? To get to that quote overnight situation. People who have been learning and practicing and building up an audience and all of these things happening. It's not something that just happens overnight when you decide, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur or oh, I want to start a podcast. We don't just magically get tens of thousands of listeners. Like there's so much work that goes in this like behind the scenes grind of like Mary Lee getting clients with her job and like keeping your consulting job. Like there's no guarantees for any of this. And so that's kind of the ride, the corner that you've just turned, right? Okay, things have shifted and changed. So do you have in your mind like a time frame where you're like, okay, if this doesn't change or if this doesn't pick up, I'm going to have to make a change? Or are you like, nope, this is the path I chose and I'm just going to power through?
Yeah, so I'm like at a really in between point of like starting to question for the first time, which is amazing. I got to be proud of myself. At 2.5 years, I'm just now questioning that, right? Like
Mhm.
that's a win, and I'm trying to remind myself of all the wins. And it's tough when things get tight, like the cash flow, the in and out, like it's really, really tough to make those decisions. Because I want to keep building. I believe in what I'm building. I know what I'm building is helpful to the world, and I know that um, we need to follow our passions and we need to, right? And I also know I have to pay the bills. So looking back, like what have I done in the interim? Well, we've got the second property now, right? So while I've less in consulting, I have more in um, real estate and making money with real estate right now. So now looking back, we did that very intentionally. It's been a lot of amazing hard work, but I guess I'm trying to still build those things, and also know that it takes time because when you first buy the property and you first, we renovated the kitchen and we got, took us a month and a half to get renters in here, et cetera, right? I have to give that money time to start coming in, to start keep paying the high interest rate. We got 6.5, but we bought at the peak of the market as far as interest rates went. And so that's the game I'm really playing right now on a day-to-day basis, is like, how can I make a little bit more? How can I get that Airbnb listing to be a little bit, get a few more bookings? So at this point, I'm starting to think like, okay, I'm getting some more consulting work coming in, it looks like, and how much am I going to need to sustain next semester? And then what, kind of other consulting work could I get to supplement? And, or, I guess I start thinking about like when hiring in school districts starts, right? And that's probably in the spring. Um, so it's like, okay, I've got some more time to figure that out. And then at this point, like, we're making ends meet. If we need to pull from here, I'll have to figure out if that makes sense or not. But I'm also still at a point where it's not feeling so heavy, as far as maybe I just need another part-time something, right?
Yeah.
Rather than when I took the leap, it was going from full-time, full income to, another part-time thing. But just the reality is of day to day of being like, okay, this month, this much is going to come in. And so how can we reduce on our, grocery bill, and then having that conversation with my husband, and, cause he buys the groceries, and, and that kind of thing. And it's like, and then this vet bill comes into play, the emergency vet bill. And it's like, okay, that pushed us back there for this month. And credit cards, I pay in full all the time. Like, that's a non-negotiable for me every single month. But then, how can you push off healthcare expenses, for example, to be charged on the last day? Because then that gives you a little bit more time to make more income before you pay that off a month later.
How do you feel in terms of financial stress? Like if you did a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being high, super stressed, how would you feel? Like, where are you at there?
Yeah, and it's all comparative to where I've been in the past, right? And so I was very much, when I left my job, at a 1, because we had built in, other streams of income. I was still getting a full salary. My husband's still getting a full salary. I was feeling very good, wealth building stage, right? And now I would say I'm probably at a 3, and that's because it's pretty stressful for me, because I haven't really been here before, ever. I shouldn't say never really, kind of. I never been in this situation before. And I did so much all those years that we were making solid money to make sure that retirement is set. And so I'm not stressed about the after 65, right? It's coast fire is what I've said I'm on, which coast fire means you have enough money to retire when you get to a certain age, but you're filling the gap from right now to that age without withdrawing that money. Because if you withdraw that money that's earmarked for 65 and later, then you won't be able to retire at 65. You'd have to push it to 66, right? So that's the game I'm playing right now, is like how to keep my retirement where it is. And I do have a brokerage account, so I can take out from that without being penalized, right? Don't take out of your retirement fund and get penalized unless it's an absolutely dire emergency. But I'm playing that coasting game, and it's gotten really tight and more stressful, but I'm definitely not at a 5. I think at a 5, I would be like applying for jobs,
Yeah.
more of a 9 to 5 again, right? So I'd say I'm at like a 3 right now, of like, something's got to shift, something's got to change.
Do you
Have you
find you're thinking?
adjusted? Oh, go ahead, Mary Lee.
Do you find that you're like running numbers a lot and thinking about it all the time?
All the time. I'm on Monarch Money watching. I'm on my business bank account watching every single day. And then I tell myself, don't look at it so much. You've got it in control, because that's making it worse. my money role model, Andrew Hallam, says don't look at your investments at all. And I've always been the person that monitors them every day, but I don't emotionally make decisions. I've learned I can do that. But with this situation, yeah, I probably need to look at it less often because I'm prepared. I know that I can pay the bills this month. I know that we can pay the bills the next month. I'm just to that point where is this going to be sustainable, right? And how am I going to make that next leap, I guess.
It's
Have
scary.
you adjusted how much money you're putting every month into your like future accounts?
Good
I know
question.
that's one thing we did like short term. We were like, okay, we had this like huge change of income. So we kind of like put the stop to transferring money every month. We didn't take any out. We just stopped putting in
Yep.
temporarily so that we had more on hand. So is that something that you've done or thought about or?
Have absolutely done that. I'm so glad you brought that up. We are not contributing to our retirement accounts at this time, for example. Another thing I just did for the very first time that shows where I am is we have a high yield, not a high yield, a health savings account, an HSA through my husband's work. And I've always, that's triple tax advantage. That's like the cream of the crop in the United States. And so we don't touch that at all. Like we pay our medical expenses out of pocket right now to let that money grow so we can take it out tax free later. And for the first time, I just withdrew some money from that. And I had to tell myself it's okay because I do have health expenses. I do have to get MRIs once a year. I do have to get mammograms once a year. I have high health expenses in the United States. And I've been in a situation where I could invest that and not use it. And now I'm in a situation where I'm going to use it for what it's for. And so that's a humbling thing. And then I had to talk to my husband about that. I had to be like, this is where I want to get some money. I'm going to get teary. This is what we're going to need to do right now. And it's okay. That's what it's actually for. So that's another thing. We just did last week's episode on high, emergency savings. There are other ways to also tap in, Jen. That's such a good question of to like stop investing for your retirement temporarily to give you some more cash flow, things like that. Yeah. I can also take out dividends. Actually, I'm going to write that down. I've done that before where I always reinvest my dividends. But I can take out dividends temporarily for a few months because you're taxed on dividends in the stock market already anyway. Even if you reinvest them, you're taxed on them. So that's post-tax dollars. So I could also have my dividends come into my accounts for a few months, and that would give me some more cash. Oh, yes, thank you. I'm going to write that down.
It's great to think through all the different options that are out there because sometimes when we have that stressful situation financially, we feel really restricted and it's hard to make a decision. Like it's hard to think rationally. I get in a super scarcity mode and I'm just afraid to do anything. And the best thing is to communicate with your partner, to have those conversations so that you're it's not just you wearing the financial stress, you're splitting that up between the two of you. And talking about everyday decisions because it's small, it can be small amounts of money, but it does add up. And suddenly a $50 purchase feels like a giant purchase when your cash flow is stretched.
Yes, and I so appreciate talking to you ladies about it. And I need this. Like we feel so alone. I felt so alone and I'm like embarrassed and, like I feel like I'm not meeting other people's expectations of me and what entrepreneurship should look like. And it's really hard. And so, but we need each other. Like I couldn't do this without having this conversation. And I know that on the other side, it's going to be fine, but it's only going to be fine because I'm actually dealing with it and facing it. Right.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going for my dreams. And
Yeah.
also, I'm not settling for, I loved teaching, don't get me wrong. And I would be happy if I went back to it, but it's not what I want in my life right now. and so I can deal with this, but I couldn't deal with it alone. So like you said, like my spouse and with you guys and with, other people in my life, like I need you guys. I need to talk about it. So I so appreciate we teach what we need.
For
So
sure.
join our
That's
community
very
and talk to
true.
us about
Yeah.
it because we need each other.
Well, you brought up a point, and I think it directs to failure. And I know for myself, I have never failed as much as I have on this entrepreneurial journey. I have felt like a failure. I have failed at things. It has been the biggest self-development, like lesson, life experience that I've ever had.
Uh-huh.
Like it was so comfortable in corporate world. And now it's, I sometimes I question my sanity. There's days, especially the first year or two, you're in tears. Like you just don't know what you're doing. And you've been able to create all these different things. Like you have these legacy pieces that you've created. Like you wrote a book, you've created courses, you've met new people. And those don't necessarily have a dollar value, but it enriches your life in a way that you probably wouldn't have had staying on your regular path. And the money will come. It's just the hardest thing is we don't know what that timeline looks like. And that's where these little tricks to planning and figuring out options really steps in well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, you said something that I really just want to reiterate for everyone that's listening. You said this isn't what entrepreneurship is supposed to look like or how it's supposed to feel or whatever, but this is exactly how it's supposed to look and feel. And I think there's two sides to that one. So one is it's just hard work. Like starting any business, whether it's brick and mortar or digital or whatever from scratch, is really hard work, right? So if you're listening to this and you're like, I've been thinking about this for a while and I think it's going to be so much easier than my job, the truth is it's not easy. It's really hard, but people do it because it's their passion. It's what they really feel committed to. And so I don't want you or anyone else listening to think they're doing it wrong if it's hard, because it is hard work, right? But the reward and the joy comes in when you feel the success that you've brought on, whether that's financial success or something that just went really well or something you're really proud of or something you created, right? So there's just all these sides to entrepreneurship that I think are really interesting to think about. And this open and honest conversation about money is exactly what we're trying to encourage with this podcast. We want people to know, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're living paycheck to paycheck or whatever, like you are not alone in this. We are all dealing with some sort of financial challenges all the time, right? And maybe this year is going to be amazing for some of us, and next year is going to be like, what? Like, you just don't know. And so I think that's the key here, and kind of what you said is that these conversations and just sitting down and chatting with a friend or getting together with a group of friends, that's what makes money less scary. That's what makes it less intimidating. That's what makes it feel okay to take some money out of this account or to stop putting money into this account for a while, because we're all in the same boat, right? Just maybe not at the same time. And making those hard choices, but staying focused on what we really value and what's really important to us, like that's what it's all about.
Yeah. I completely agree. And I'm like feeling a sense of calm by just talking to you guys about this here today. Like I am feeling like a sense of recognition of Sybil, you're doing it. This is what it looks like. This is how you do it. You took from an HSA, somebody else is going to take from a who knows what, and somebody else is going to do whatever, and it's worth following your dreams,
Yep.
and it's worth um learning about your money, quite frankly, no matter what. If you have a 9 to 5, you have want to, be an entrepreneur, whatever it is, like money is never ever going away our entire lives. So to me, this is like the most worthy place besides our relationships with people, probably, and ourselves, to invest and to do the hard things, like having that conversation. I get it. Like it was like, Let's talk about this. Let's really honestly talk about this because this is honestly what's happening in my life right now. And I know that it's happening in others' lives. If not right now, they'll remember it in the future or, go back, and we are all going to have times in different seasons of our lives. I appreciate you ladies, and I appreciate all of our listeners out there too, for being on this journey with us. It really can be a beautiful community thing, right? So amazing. Should we wrap it up maybe?
Yep, let's
Yeah.
do it. But this was a very first successful session of real talk with the Female Finance Collective, I think.
Yeah, agreed. So thank you so much for listening. Let us know what you think. Did you like kind of this format where we just kind of we're trying to have real conversations where we got even more real? Like this video or this podcast, subscribe. Let us know what you're thinking, what you want to know more about, and we look forward to talking again next week.